In this video, you create a bookshelf carcass from a default generic wall-based family template. You first assign a category, then set up and create the parametric framework using reference planes and labels. Finally, you create extrusions to form the carcass geometry. We'll begin by creating a new family. On the Revit home screen, go ahead and select New Family. In the New Family Select Template File dialog, we'll begin by selecting Generic Model Wall-Based and click Open. The new family opens in a plan view. You can clearly see our wall host, two reference planes which define the origin of our family, and a piece of text describing the placement side. Our first task is to set the correct category. So this is going to be categorized as furniture. Currently, this is set to generic model. To change the category, on the Create ribbon in the Properties panel, we'll go ahead and select Family Category and Parameters. We'll clearly note here that the current category is generic model. Let's set this to furniture and then go ahead and select OK. As well as setting a category, quite often built-in parameters are automatically created as well. And in our case, we have a new parameter already created representing the height of our furniture. We'll now start to set up our parametric framework. We'll begin by going into an elevation view. In the project browser, under Elevations folder, let's open up Placement Side. We'll begin by creating some additional reference planes. On the Create ribbon in the Datum panel, go ahead and select Reference Plane. On the Context ribbon in the Draw panel, we'll ensure that we're using Pick Lines, and on the Options bar, we can now set an offset. Let's begin by entering 3 feet. We'll then take this reference plane here and offset it to the right. That's going to represent the width of our bookshelf. Next, we want to create another reference plane to represent the height. This needs to be set to 5 feet. So again, on the Options bar in the Offset box, we'll set this to 5. We'll then take our reference level and then offset this above. We now have the basic reference planes representing the outer shape of our bookshelf. We'll now create some additional reference planes to represent the material thickness. Again, on the Options bar, we'll change our offset to 1 inch. And then we'll offset each of these reference planes inside. We can now begin to add dimensions to our newly created reference planes. On the Context ribbon in the Measure panel, let's go ahead and select Aligned Dimension. We'll begin by dimensioning the overall width and height of our new bookshelf. We'll then add some additional dimensions to set the material thickness. And we'll set one more over here and place the dimension. You can see that the scale needs to be adjusted here. To do this, on the View Control bar, we'll select the scale and we'll set this to 1 inch to 1 foot. We'll now add some labels to our newly created dimensions. First, we'll exit the Align Dimension tool by selecting Modify on the Context ribbon. We'll begin by setting the width. Let's select this dimension here, and on the Label Dimension panel, we'll go ahead and select Create Parameter. We'll name this Width. All the defaults will remain the same in our Parameter Properties dialog, so it's a type parameter, and Revit is suggesting that we group the parameter under Dimensions. We'll go ahead and select OK. We'll now set our height. As we said, this parameter would already be created from the furniture category. This is a built-in parameter. To access this, on the Label panel, we can go to the Label drop-down menu and select Height. And again, that's now been assigned to that dimension. We'll now select the 4 dimensions representing the material thickness. I'll hold down my Control key and I'll select each of the dimensions. Again, on the Label Dimension panel, we'll select Create Parameter. We'll name the parameter Material Thickness. And again, all the defaults remain the same, so we'll select OK. So we now have to think about our bookshelf depth. To create a reference plane and set a parameter, we'll change the elevation from placement side to left. In the project browser, under the Elevations folder, let's double-click on left. Here we can already see the reference planes that we've just generated, and now we'll create some additional reference planes. To do this, we'll select the Create ribbon, and in the Datum panel, we'll select Reference Plane. Once again, in the Context ribbon in the Draw panel, we'll ensure that we're selecting Pick Lines, and on the Options bar, we'll set our offset to 1 foot. We'll then offset this reference plane here, so this is from the placement face of the wall. We'll then extend the reference plane. On the Context ribbon in the Measure panel, we'll select Aligned Dimension, and we'll add a dimension from our newly created reference plane to this reference plane here. We'll press Escape twice to exit the Align Dimension command. We'll then select our newly created dimension, and on the Label Dimension panel, again we'll select Create Parameter. This will simply be called Depth, and we'll click OK to the dialog. Okay, so we're now ready to create our extrusion to create the overall carcass shape of our bookshelf. To do this, we'll switch the view back to the placement side. To create the extrusion, we'll select the Create ribbon, and on the Forms panel, we'll select Extrusion. On the Context ribbon in the Draw panel, again, we're going to utilize Pick Lines. My intention here is to select the reference planes, and that will form the outline of our shape. On the Options bar, you'll notice that additionally, we can also lock these lines to the reference planes automatically. We'll then start to select our reference planes, and as I do this, you can see not only does it create the line work, but it also constrains that line work as well. We'll create the internal lines representing the material thickness, and of course now we need to trim all the line work. On the Context ribbon in the Modify panel, we'll go ahead and select Trim Extend to Corner. We can then work our way around and start trimming this line work. You'll see that the elements we pick are the pieces we want to keep, and the outside pieces are then trimmed accordingly. And we'll then go ahead and do the internal line work. And you can now see the trimming is complete. To finalize the extrusion on the Context ribbon, we'll select Finish Edit Mode. Now, of course, we also need to set the depth of our extrusion, and this is best done in the left elevation view. So we'll switch back to the left view, and you can now clearly see our extrusion. We'll use the shape handle here to extend the extrusion to our newly created reference plane, and we'll also constrain. To constrain the back edge of our carcass to the reference plane here, we'll use the Align command. On the Context ribbon in the Modify panel, go ahead and select Align. We'll select the reference plane that we want to align to, and then the back edge of our extrusion. And again, you can see that that's now aligned and constrained. To exit the Align command, we'll press Escape twice, and we'll now view the carcass of our bookshelf in 3D. In the Project Browser, under the 3D Views folder, let's open up View 1. We can now see our carcass. Finally, we'll add a material parameter to our extrusion. Go ahead and select the extrusion. In the Properties palette under the Material and Finishes group, we'll select Associate Family Parameter. You can see in the Associate Family Parameter dialog, we currently don't have any material parameters set up, but in this dialog, we can access the new parameter command. Let's go ahead and select this. And here we'll give this material parameter a name. We'll simply call this Material and Finish. Again, this will be a type parameter, and Revit's suggesting that we group this under Materials and Finishes. We'll then select OK, and OK again to the dialog. To test our new carcass, on the Modify ribbon in the Properties panel, we'll go ahead and select Family Types. And in the Family Type dialog, you can now see all of our parameters that we've just created. Let's begin by changing the width, so we'll adjust this to 4 feet, and then select Apply. We'll then go to the height and amend this to 6 feet, and again select Apply. And let's now adjust the material thickness to 2 inches, and again we'll select Apply. So we can now see that all of the parameters are working correctly. Let's select OK to the Family Type dialog, and we'll go ahead and save our new family. On the Quick Access toolbar, let's select Save, and for the file name, We'll call this bookshelf and select save.